Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aiden with another episode of Servant Leadership Podcast. And today I have a very unique, interesting, and delightful guest. I hope you will enjoy her as much as I have enjoyed getting to know her. Ladies and gentlemen, Lynn Zwibak. And I had to practice her name a couple times. And so, Lynn, thank you for your patience with me learning your name. And thank you for being a guest on my show. It
I'm
seemed
really happy to be here.
Lynn, thanks for being with us. And when we first met and I said, "Hey, do you want to be a guest on my Servant Leadership Podcast?" Do you remember what you said?
Probably something really enthusiastic, like when can I do it? Or of course, sign me up.
Well,
I exactly.
I add that and I'll accept that. And when we were talking about uh, interesting people that have opportunities that learn different, you said, I believe my story will help others, and I
Yes.
can't wait to dig into your story, Lynn. You're For those that don't know, I run a leadership development company. I have webinars and cohorts, and Lynn at this moment is in hopefully enjoying one of my cohorts. But let me give you a little bit of background about Lynn. Let's call it the phase one of her hospitality life. She was spending time with Marriott and Hilton, basically in sales and revenue management for various hotels. Second piece I found about 8 years, 8 years ago, she started as an adjunct professor at Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. And the last 2.5+ years, she's been involved as a board member on female founders in hospitality. She's a co-chair recently at the Women in Travel Thrive, an organization that I'm very proud to say I support. And she has her very own revenue management training company, which it's revenue management for people who don't know revenue management, which I think is really cool. But what's really interesting about this woman in front of me is she's making her home right now in El Salvador. And prior to that, she was in Nairobi, Kenya. Before that, the Philippines, or perhaps vice versa. And so let's get out of the way the thing. Why the heck are you in El Salvador?
That is always the question, and I love people's faces when I tell them where I am. Um, so it's about a man. So my husband, who I met just about 8 years ago, is a foreign service officer. Or we we know them as diplomats,
Sure.
and he's been posted to these various countries. And one of the criteria for me to be willing to join him on this adventure was that I needed to be able to have my own like a job. So that's driven a lot of the choices and opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of, which we'll get into.
Sure.
Um, it's also added a whole extra level of education, frankly, and difficulty to my life.
Bottom line, do you enjoy living in different countries and doing the things you can and want to do to support your relationship, right?
Yeah, yes, and that's been an interesting experience as well. Yeah, I do enjoy it, and there's this conception that spouses, the term trailing spouses, that,
Sure.
and it's usually the wife, just kind of follow the husband around the world and give up their lives and whatever. And I've been really fortunate, but very insistent that that is not my case. So when people say something like, "Oh, so you follow your husband around the world?" I say, "No, I get to live around the world because of what my husband does."
Yeah.
And it's just created so many opportunities for me without having to do the job that he does, which frankly would not be the job for me.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
well, I
so
love.
it was. Oh,
No, I
sorry.
was just going to say, I love your perspective on what you get to do instead
Mhm.
of what you have to do. And let's just be honest, Lynn. You and I can be honest. We have from the very beginning. There's a lot of women who see it as that and they judge it accordingly, and they don't understand the value of being able to not only live in really cool places, support your husband, sure, but it's
Mm,
not it's by choice that you do it, but it's also, it sounds as though, just look at your background, you're making the most of all of these years. And
yeah.
look at the powerful organizations that you're involved with, and let's not also miss you own your own revenue training company. That's really cool. And you can do that from anywhere around the world.
Yeah, and
So
frankly,
congrats.
that's why I finally decided to go out on my own, because it was too hard on me to keep reinventing myself in all these countries and finding job opportunities and working on the local economy, because cultures, until you're in it, we just don't appreciate how different cultures are. And I'm not talking like what you wear or the slang you use. I'm talking about your
Yeah.
perception of time, your relationship to deadlines, the kind of questions you can ask in a work setting, things like that. It was mind blowing to me. But because of my husband's work for the government, I was able to start my own company,
Mm.
because I know a lot of people don't have that kind of safety net, and I'm really grateful that I do. I mean, I have health
Yep.
insurance. He has an income. We don't pay for housing. That's
Yeah.
included in his deal. And, I wouldn't be able to take this time and build this business without that opportunity.
So tell us again, as I mentioned in your introduction, there's a lot of sales and revenue background in your hospitality experiences, and of all the things you could be doing and owning your own company and serving and training others, uh, just tell us in brief why revenue management? Why is that important?
Oh, well, there's why revenue management was important to me, and then why revenue management is important to the
Yep.
industry. Um, so I'll start with why it's important to me. Um, I studied hospitality management in college, but I really had no idea what I wanted to do with it. I was thinking accounting because I'm like a numbers geek. And then, and no offense to anybody about what I'm going to say, but I met a gentleman from Hilton, corporate director of sales recruitment, who said that I had too much personality for accounting and finance and I should be in sales. So
There you go.
I was young and impressionable. So I was like, okay. So I started in sales and I was good at it, but I hated it. It was,
Hmm.
I would go home every day and cry. I just felt like I was letting people down left and right. But I also learned later I'm an introvert. I have to be a very outgoing introvert, but I get exhausted having to be on. And it was just so draining. So, and at the same time, people were saying to me, and no offense, Lynn, you're too smart to be in sales. I don't know what people think about salespeople, and I won't get into that. But I think what they meant was like, you're more analytical
Yes.
than
I
a
think that's what they meant.
salesperson. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. And so then I had this crisis. I was like 4 years into sales with Hilton. I was a director of group sales. And I was like, what do I do with my career and my life? Because sales isn't right for me. I realized at that point I didn't want to be in finance. And like, I was like, I don't want to be in operations and I can't leave the industry because this is like my education, my career. What do I
Right.
do? And after much soul searching, I kind of stumbled on revenue management as a field. And like, I knew it was there. I had revenue managers in the hotels I was working in, but I hadn't actually thought about it like as an option for me for some reason. And it really was the best of both worlds because it hit the analytical side of me,
Yep.
but it also, and most people don't realize this about revenue management, it's a very outward focused
Yep.
discipline because you have to share your findings. You have to justify your actions. You have to convince other people. Like, it's kind of sales. You're just
Yep.
selling ideas
Yep.
instead. As soon as I realized that that could be for me, like the problem was solved. To get started in revenue management, the best way for me, I thought, was to go to a shared services team.
Sure.
Um, Hilton's is in Dallas. I was living in Washington, D.C.
That's where they were.
Marriott happens to be just outside of Washington, D.C. So that was an easy move or an easy decision. So I moved. And it was a big decision from a financial standpoint. I ended up taking just about a 50% pay cut, going from a director level to a manager level.
Hmm.
But it was important to me to do that because I couldn't continue in sales. It was just destroying my mental health.
Well, you mentioned first of all, you're talking to a lifelong sales and development person. I was actually in with no. And I'll laugh at the things you said because salespeople have always have had and always will have this stigma of they're kind of greasy, they're kind of slimy, they're kind of talky, and they all they want to do is sell something, then they'll let you go. And I'll tell you my story about sales in a minute. But 8 years with Marriott on property, I did convention sales for all Marriott, the Marriott resorts, which was great. I was in Lake of the Ozarks, Vail, Colorado, and Palm Springs, so I kind of had a great gig. And then 5 years in financial services, which was very analytical, but we got to recruit CPAs to be financial planners and train them. So I have also a love of training, and
Uh,
that's where my love for serving others came from. But then my big mark was really with IHG, 16 years in franchise sales and development. And although I did very well, I took the approach that I wasn't really in sales. I was in the business of helping somebody buy what they said they wanted. But back
yeah.
to you, and what I want to when I kind of reflect what I heard is yes, it's analytical, and you clearly have a brain and a heart for that. But it's outwardly focused, but in a very directed way. So you don't have to perform; you get to communicate. And what I've
Mm,
known of you, that's a great skill of yours, and you get to justify your actions and ask others to endorse what you're suggesting, and again, not really sales, it's just really solid way of communicating what it is you found and why this resort or why this hotel or why this area, this region should adopt your thinking. So thanks for sharing with us. And again,
I,
I believe there's hundreds of people out there that would identify with, yeah, I had to take a pay cut, but I knew I was on the wrong path. So let's get back on the right path. And then I'm assuming you appreciated your decision, correct?
yes, I do want to piggyback on what you said about salespeople being slimy because I hate that conception, and
Hmm.
I never thought of it that way. And I think the reason it was so hard for me was because what drew me to sales was that I really want to help people solve problems. Like that's genuinely like my I get it. That's what gets me going and
Mm,
gives me drive and gets me excited. And so I I never considered sales as selling. I considered it as matching their needs to what I had. The hard
absolutely.
part about what I was doing was that I couldn't do that. I couldn't match, like the smart market, they want cheap rates. We were in a really nice hotel. Like I can never give them what they wanted, and I didn't have control over the delivery.
Exactly.
So in my world now, selling myself essentially, that's my second favorite part of what I do. First part being the actual training. But like because most people don't know that they need what I have to offer.
Yeah.
And I never come right out and offer it. But through talking to them, we kind of get to that point because there's this huge gap in the hotel world of this mismatch of understanding of revenue. I just love seeing people realize they need it and then seeing the light bulbs go off
Yeah.
when they get it.
Well, right there, now we have a modern day parallel because as you know, I've been a leadership coach for a long time. And one of my dreams is to always make sure the people I'm communicating with, not selling, not talking to, but talking with, I love to see them get it. And when they get it, their eyes light up or their heart sparkles. And you can't always see everything, but it's not about me. It's about them getting it and then having more ammunition or more confidence or more belief in themselves. And as you know, Lynn, when people are, I believe you believe this, is when we're happier and we believe in ourselves, we can do things.
Mhm.
You said something that we touched on when we very first met a few months ago. You said it wasn't good for your mental health, and I want your perspective on mental health, mental illness.
Ah,
What do you believe we as a country can be doing differently and better? without being political, and share your story, and then just help us close the gap, I guess, because honestly, whether it's in sales or revenue management, there is a need, and the need right now is how do we address the huge issue in this country that is literally killing people, or they're killing themselves. And as you know, I lost my son last May, and that's when I really began to understand the true gap between serving our kids and just allowing them to live their lives with little to no direction. But go ahead and just share with us as you wish.
Yeah, and again, I'm so sorry for your loss, and that's what drew me to you in the first place because mental health or has been a theme for me for my entire life. Um, and I haven't shared about it publicly, but I have been making a deliberate effort over the last few years to be more open about it. So thank you for giving me a platform. Because the
Absolutely.
first thing I think we need to do is eliminate the stigma. And and we've come such a long way. And if anything good came out of the pandemic situation, it's that people started talking about mental health. And I'm getting teary, so if I cry, sorry, but it's just such a
I lo-
part of my story and so proud of emotion. So yeah, so depression and anxiety have been a theme. My father had suffered from various mental illnesses and continues to suffer that impacted me as a child and as an adult. Um, and I, I take after him, so that's alarming to me. But and then about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which was eye opening. I didn't know much about it. I mean, there's so much misconception about that. So we can talk about that too. But, being able to talk about it now with people I meet and not being afraid of being judged
Mhm.
is so helpful. Brene Brown, she talks, she's a shame researcher and she's awesome. Check her out. She talks a lot how shame thrives in the dark. And only by talking about it can we start it out of our bodies and out of our minds and
Yeah.
into the world. And I'm not saying mental health illness is shameful, but some people think that it is, and then it should be hidden. Yeah. So I think that's the first part of it is just being able to talk about it and not judging people for talking about it and not treating them differently when they talk about it once you know that about them. Um, I mean, there's definitely a shortage of trained professionals to treat people. So that's a problem I don't begin to have a solution for. I mean, and not getting political, but I'm very fortunate. I've always had good health insurance and could get the kind of treatment and care that has helped me. Um,
Well,
medication has, oh,
medication for ADHD is very, very well known. If you have children and they go to any kind of a school, public or private, I guarantee you 30%, 50% maybe are on some sort of ADHD related medicine, Focalin, Ritalin, uh,
I take Adderall.
yeah, Adderall, Vyvanse, and I didn't, excuse me, heck, I didn't know of any of these. And then I had two boys, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you realize your sons have ADHD, and the 88, what, and but now, I know not only is it well known, not well known enough, but it's not difficult to get the medication, but sometimes we have to fight with insurance companies to justify the need for it. And again, if Adderall and other things are being abused by drug users, that's a whole nother podcast. But to help moms and dad give the kids what they need to adjust the stimulation and help them focus and literally focus and monitor a behavior that is uncontrollable at school so they're not noticed as weird and judged as so. And that's what the medicine is there to do. And Brooks and Sam used to be they're on it every morning, and one of them had to take it in the afternoon as well. And I love Brene Brown. I'm a big fan of her. I've been following her ever since I started my own company. And she has a lot of courageous and vulnerable things to say and encourages other people to be vulnerable and courageous. And shame thrives in the dark only because that's where we think we need to go to hide it instead of talking about it and asking people, what do you know about it? Before you judge somebody that looks or acts a different way than you, which by the way, that's fine, why is there judgment? And it's
Right.
usually judgment comes from a place of ignorance. I don't want to educate myself, ignorant. I don't care to educate myself, ignorant. And I'm going to judge you because I don't even want to take the time to understand you. So I just
Ignorant.
want you to know I see you. I know the people listening to this, if they can't see you, I know they're going to hear you. And if you're a mom or a dad or an older uh, brother or sister of someone with ADHD, what do you recommend?
Well, oh my God, so many things to say. Um, First of all, there actually is a shortage of ADHD medication
There is.
out there. Yeah. And I've had trouble getting mine. And I mean, again, I have really good insurance. I'm able to get prescriptions abroad through that. But that is a problem out there. I do also just want to say that medication has been part of my treatment plan for anxiety and depression as well. So big
Sure.
anyone who thinks they can just think their way out of it,
No.
let me know how that's going.
I
Um,
I hear you.
but for well, and then I'll say specifically, I can't speak to boys, but for girls and women, that's a whole extra level of ADHD complication. And you even said, reducing the behaviors that are getting you noticed in school. Well, most girls don't exhibit behaviors that get them noticed as unruly. There's actually three types of ADHD, and I'm sure you know this, but for the education of your listeners, there's hyperactive, which is what we think of, like little boys bouncing off the wall. Then there's inattentive, which is daydreaming, not able to pay attention, easily distracted. And then there's combination, which is a little both. Well, because I go all in for everything. I have the combination, which is great for me. But in school, I was mostly inattentive. So no, like, and I was, and I'm air quoting here, I was smart. I got good grades because I could just turn it on when I needed to. I'm a great test taker.
Sure.
Never learned how to study. So if I didn't get it, I was never going to get it. I just, you know, dropped the class.
Hmm.
Um, but nobody looked at me and was like, maybe there's something else going on because I wasn't attracting attention. That explained all my self confidence issues growing up. And
Sure.
frankly, I don't even know that I'm depressed. I think I just had untreated ADHD all my life, and that was leading to all these things.
Wow. I mean, you described both of my boys when you went through the certain areas of ADHD, hyperactive, inattentive, not paying attention, and then combination. And frankly, until I really started to understand each boy to their core, and as it turned out, Sam was autistic. We didn't even know that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how they learn and how they think and how they behave. And God bless us for having him, but it's almost shameful to say that Laura and I didn't know earlier, and we could have done more. But that's looking backwards.
Mm.
And I have all sorts of questions that I could ask you, but I want you to speak to the people that have ADHD. You're a young woman, you're a young man, you have it. You've heard all the negative comments, you have the stigma. Um, which I believe comes from, again, people, whether they're younger or older, they just don't have the desire or maybe the mental capacity themselves to have the empathy. So outside of seeking empathy, which is sometimes difficult, what do you tell these young women and young men in their lives to what do you recommend outside of staying on meds and making sure that they have a lot of support at home?
The, the thing about ADHD, it's a condition and it's debilitating.
Hmm.
It has cost me things. So I would say that. But the biggest thing I've been learning, and treatment is essential. Having the right prescriber and then coaching. So coaching is this whole other area I didn't even know was a thing. But those are people who are certified coaches by the organizations that do that sort of thing on specifically working with people with ADHD. Once they're medicated, that allows them to function in a way that can help them overcome their challenges. Then they teach you the skills that other people learned when they were children or just starting out in adulthood, like how to make sure you pay your bills, how to make sure you go to the doctor regularly, like do
Yeah.
your laundry, things like that. Like, or my coach and I are working on how to make sure that I can accomplish what I want to accomplish in the hours that I have available. Because I I think I'm working at maybe 50% of my actual capacity because time just gets lost. So I would say treatment, definitely.
And
And there's two
coaching.
great organizations, CHAD, Children and Adults with ADHD, and ADA, Adult, I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but that's ADD.org and CHAD with two Ds.org. So they have a ton of resources. But I would say most of all, but learn to separate the symptoms from the person. So if you have it and you're feeling bad about yourself, which, you know, I do regularly, or you're somebody who's in a relationship or works with somebody, they are trying probably harder than you are and harder than you can imagine because everything is so hard. They're just not they're just not able to do it. But it doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they don't respect you or love you. It doesn't mean they're lazy. They have a condition. Like you
Right.
wouldn't ask somebody in a wheelchair to run a mile. Like just the problem with mental health issues is that people can't see them.
Hmm.
Therefore, they don't believe that they're real, again, air quotes, that they exist and that they're debilitating. So,
I love what you said about separating the symptom from the person. And by the way, it's not too different from what I do for a living relative to a coach, helping someone become a better leader. It's not just talking to them as a leader, which is a title or an opportunity, or talking to them as a parent, which is a title or an opportunity. It's about what is it that you want to accomplish, and it's in life, not just your job. And I will never ever subscribe to work life balance. I've said this on the show many
hmm,
times, and because we have one life, we have two eyes, one nose, one heart, one mouth. So we can't, and we don't get 168 hours twice. We have the same amount of time. So as we show up, what I'm saying to you is whether you have a condition or not, we all struggle to a certain degree. Is how do we make the most of our day? And part of it is, again, whether it requires medication or focus or lack of alcohol or more sleep or whatever, every day has a purpose. And we need to draw the purpose if we need to. We need to schedule the purpose if we have to. And it's beyond owning your word and what you put in your calendar. But a lot of people don't even know how to use their calendar as a tool because time is only as valuable as it is when it's right now and tomorrow. You can't go back and change anything. You can't go back and change time. Now you can go back and apologize, but even that takes time. And what could you have done during the day to avoid having to apologize? And I said this to a client earlier this morning is, hey, let's try and avoid the behaviors that require apologies.
yeah.
And she looked at me and said, wow. I said, well, it's a choice, isn't it? It's a choice. And so with when you come across someone that is different than you, might be behaving differently than you, please don't assume they have a problem. They have an opportunity and they're taking medication, they're doing the best they can, and be kind. And Sam, while he was still with us, he had challenges with people who would kind of pick on him because he was interesting compared to some of the others, and they didn't always know how to approach Sam. And
Mhm. Yeah.
Sam didn't always know how to be approached, and it's difficult. And I'm just asking the leaders in organizations that know they have an opportunity to lead maybe differently, not special, differently. Take the time, make the time, and make them feel just as important as everybody else, because guess what? They are. And if you don't see that, shame on you. And parents, it's in us. And sometimes we don't want to be associated with a stigma that our child has. Well, come on. They were either born with it, you had it, you just didn't know. I'm sure I had ADHD growing up. I can tell you I couldn't sit still. But there was no medicine back in 1964, 66. Hell, I'm 61. I've seen a lot of things come and go, and every day my eyes are open to something new. And Lynn, I want to say, first of all, thank you for being courageous, being vulnerable, dare I say, Brene Brown like. I appreciate
Best
your
compliment you could give me.
well, she's one of my heroes. I saw her here at a big church a few years back when she came to Denver, and I had heard a lot about her. I'd read a lot about it, and but just see her and feel her. And I lived in Texas for 17 years, and that's where, as you know, she makes home in Houston, and just really proud of her work. Um, but I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. And again, the distinction between sales and helping people drive revenue. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Making distinction when we first started. Hey, Greg, I'm not in revenue management. I'm in revenue management training. I help others who don't know come here from SICM about that. So you're here to educate us on that, and thank you for that. And again, um, you're in some really cool organizations that are empowering women to take what is rightfully theirs. And I've said this on DEI advisors with Rachel Humphrey. I don't believe it's women having it's not as much as women having a hard time advocating for themselves. It's men recognizing it's time to move over, and it's time to be more inclusive, not because you have to, but because you want to. And I know you and I are going to do great things together, hopefully with Women in Travel Thrive. I'm excited to be a partner there. And at some point, I hope that's all I do is help people that either don't know how to ask for help, or the ones that do and they just are afraid. So what are your parting words for us, Lynn?
Uh, well, I didn't mean to make this about ADHD, but I did. So I'll saying ADHD, there's kind of this running theme in the community that it's a superpower. And it comes with so many cool characteristics: energy, passion, creativity, outside of the box, which is easy, but thinking outside the box, um, entrepreneurship, um,
Yeah,
empathy, like so many things. So don't look at it as a disability. It
it's
impairs
not.
certain areas of your life, but it just makes people different, not better.
Well, earlier, there's only two people, maybe four, depending on if the original parents are still married, but it's parents. We can start earlier, Lynn, if we want to. We
Mhm.
can help people get involved, kids, boys, girls, them. We can help them get involved in things that are really important. And it's not social media. Social media doesn't help you become a better speaker or better listener. It's just there's a lot of noise out there. And again, call me old fashioned, but the last time I heard someone really make a great presentation, he or she didn't have a cell phone in their hand. The last time I really had a fantastic conversation with my son, neither of us had our phone in our hand. It's called being present, and it's the gift that always gives. But if you're going to have a conversation with your kid and you have the cell phone in your hand, you're looking at it while you believe you're being present. What do you think they're going to? What behaviors are they going to exhibit at school? So where we start earlier, it's called home. It's called parenting. Let's stop appeasing our kids and allowing boys to be boys and girls to be girls to a certain degree. If you know that you could have been parented different, why wait? Start now. Do something different. And you said something about, the people that you support loudly. They have energy, they have passion, they have creativity, they're outside the box thinkers, and they have empathy. Those are great characteristics of great leaders. So let's not say because you have a condition you can't be a great leader, because that's just a bunch of crap. So I will again say thank you, Lynn, for making time to be here. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thanks for being bubbly and energetic and alive. I love that about you. And please don't stop. And
Thank you.
tell your husband thank you for inviting you to come along, but remind him that he's lucky that you decided to come along.
He knows. He knows
Okay.
how lucky he is. But
Okay.
thank you. This has helped me out. Just having a place to talk, and I know people will hear it, and I hope that this helps somebody
Yeah.
come to terms with something. And reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Um,
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It's if you want to get in touch with Lynn, she's on LinkedIn. Again, it's Lynn, Z as in zebra, Wibak, Lynn Zwibak, and you can find her there on LinkedIn. Again, appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, reach out to her directly. And again, I think
well,
everyone that's attended or listening to this, go out and be kind and ask yourself, what if you could be more energetic, more passionate, more creative, more of an out of the box thinker? And you know me, one of my favorite words, especially since I've been married to Tammy Fisher, let's behave with a little bit more empathy, shall we? Go out and love someone like you've never loved them before. Go out and lead someone like you've never led them before. And God bless. Have a great day. Thank you.
thank you.